The kitchen table was covered with real estate documents when I arrived for what I thought was a family dinner. My parents sat across from each other with practiced authority, while my sister Jennifer's real estate business cards were strategically placed next to official-looking contracts. "Perfect timing, Alex," Mom announced, sliding a listing agreement toward me. "We've decided it's time to sell the house." I stared at the paperwork, noting my address at the top. Pie House. "Family property is shared," Mom insisted, her tone suggesting this was common knowledge I'd somehow forgotten. "Your father and I helped with the down payment 5 years ago. That creates shared ownership rights." Jennifer nodded with professional confidence. "I've already done a comparative market analysis. The neighborhood's hot right now. We could list at $450 and probably get multiple offers above asking." "Multiple offers on my house," I repeated slowly. Dad leaned forward with his most reasonable expression. "Alex, be practical. You're 27 and single. This house is too big for one person, and the equity could set you up nicely in a smaller place while giving us the retirement funds we need." The irony was breathtaking. While they calculated profits from my property, they had no idea I'd been quietly building a portfolio management company that now handled investments for several high-net-worth clients. My small house was actually my carefully chosen headquarters, selected for its privacy and proximity to financial district meetings. "Besides," Jennifer added, "I've already scheduled showings for this weekend. The market won't wait, and I have buyers looking in exactly this price range." I pulled out my phone ostensibly to check my calendar. In reality, I was texting my attorney. "Emergency consultation needed. Parents attempting forced property sale." "Don't be difficult about this," Mom continued. "We're not asking for anything unreasonable. Your father and I contributed $15,000 toward your down payment. That investment entitles us to participation in any sale decisions." The $15,000 they'd contributed had actually been a loan I'd repaid with interest within 18 months. But explaining that would require them to acknowledge my financial competence, which had never been their strength. "Alex has always been impractical about money," Dad told Jennifer, as if I wasn't sitting right there. "Living beyond his means, buying a house he couldn't really afford. We're helping him make a smart decision for once." My impractical money management had generated 7-figure returns for my clients last quarter, but my parents saw my work-from-home setup and concluded I was unemployed or underemployed. "What about the mortgage?" I asked casually. Jennifer waved dismissively. "I'll handle all that during closing. The buyers will assume the existing loan or arrange their own financing. Standard procedure." "And if I don't want to sell?" The temperature in the room dropped noticeably. Mom's face tightened with familiar frustration. "Alex, this isn't just about what you want. Family decisions require family consensus. Your father and I have legal standing as co-investors in this property." I almost laughed. Their legal standing existed only in their imagination, but they'd apparently convinced Jennifer of their ownership rights. As a real estate agent, she should have known better than to prepare listing documents without verifying actual ownership. "I'll need to review these contracts," I said finally. "There's nothing to review," Dad insisted. "Jennifer's handled everything properly. We just need your signature to complete the listing authorization." I stood up, leaving the papers on the table. "I'll get back to you." "Alex," Mom called as I headed toward the door. "Don't make this more complicated than it needs to be. We're trying to help you here." "I understand," I replied. "You're looking out for my best interests." As I drove home, I called my attorney David Martinez, who'd handled my business incorporation and property purchases. "David, I need a complete title search on my residence, plus documentation proving sole ownership. My parents think they have legal claims." "Based on what?" David asked. "A $15,000 loan they gave me 5 years ago, which I repaid in full." David's chuckle was audible. "We'll have definitive documentation by morning. This should be interesting." Saturday morning brought Jennifer to my front door with a photographer and potential buyers. She had her professional smile locked in place and a showing schedule that apparently didn't require my permission. "Hi Alex. Just here for the listing photos. The 10:30 showing is a cash buyer from California, so I need everything looking perfect." I stood in my doorway blocking entry. "I didn't authorize any listings or showings." "Mom showed me your signature on the listing agreement," Jennifer replied, though her confidence seemed slightly forced. The photographer needs to work quickly. We have 3 more showings this afternoon. Behind her, a middle-aged couple waited expectantly beside a luxury sedan. The woman was already taking notes about the exterior landscaping and neighborhood aesthetics. There's been a misunderstanding, I told the couple directly. This property isn't actually for sale. Jennifer's face went red. Alex, don't do this. These people drove 2 hours to see the house. We have a professional obligation to honor confirmed appointments. Your professional obligation is to verify ownership before scheduling showings, I replied. Did you run a title search? The question hit like a physical blow. Jennifer's mouth opened and closed wordlessly while the couple exchanged confused glances. Of course I mean Mom and Dad explained the ownership structure. Jennifer stammered. They provided all the necessary documentation about their investment in the property. What documentation? The loan papers. And the shared equity agreements. I almost felt sorry for her. What shared equity agreements, Jennifer? The couple was already walking back to their car, clearly uncomfortable with the family drama unfolding on the front lawn. Jennifer watched her commission disappear with mounting desperation. Alex, you're being unreasonable. Mom and Dad invested in this house. They have legitimate ownership stakes that need to be honored in any sale. According to who? According to real estate law. When family members contribute to property purchases, it creates legal partnerships that... I held up my hand to stop her. Jennifer, you're a licensed real estate agent. What's the first thing you're supposed to verify before listing any property? The silence stretched painfully. Finally, she whispered, clear title and ownership documentation. And did you do that? Mom said you were all on the deed together. She showed me bank records proving their investment. Bank records of what? The $15,000 they gave you for the down payment. The $15,000 loan that I repaid with interest by December 2019? Jennifer's face went white. Repaid. With full documentation. Interest calculated at market rates. Paid in monthly installments over 18 months, exactly as agreed. By Monday morning my parents were calling repeatedly. Jennifer had apparently spent the weekend canceling showings and trying to understand how she'd nearly committed real estate fraud by listing property she had no authority to sell. Alex, we need to talk, Dad said when I finally answered. There seems to be some confusion about the house situation. What kind of confusion? Jennifer says you claim to have repaid our investment. But we don't have any records of receiving payments. That's interesting, I replied. Because my bank has records of 18 monthly transfers to your joint account, each marked house loan repayment in the memo line. The silence was deafening. Tuesday afternoon, David Martinez called with the results of his investigation. Alex, you need to hear this immediately. I've got the title search, payment records, and something else that's going to blow your mind. What did you find? Your parents never had any legal claim to your property. The loan was properly documented and fully repaid with interest. But here's the kicker. Jennifer's real estate license is currently suspended. I sat down hard. Suspended. 3 months ago. Failure to maintain continuing education requirements and 2 complaints about misrepresenting property ownership in previous transactions. She's been operating illegally since August. The implications crashed over me like a wave. So every listing she's prepared, every showing she's scheduled. Completely unauthorized. She has no legal standing to represent any property sales. Your parents hired an unlicensed agent to sell property they don't own. David arrived at my house an hour later with a briefcase full of documentation. We spread everything across my dining table. Title searches, payment records, licensing reports, and Jennifer's disciplinary history. The state real estate board suspended her for 6 months, David explained. She failed to complete mandatory training and had 2 separate incidents where she listed properties without proper ownership verification. My parents don't know? Based on this paperwork, Jennifer told them she was handling everything properly. Look at these texts between her and your mother. She's been falsely representing her licensing status for months. I studied the message thread David had obtained through legal discovery. Jennifer had explicitly told our parents she was fully licensed and authorized to handle all real estate transactions, when in reality she'd been operating illegally since summer. What about the listing agreement they wanted me to sign? David's expression darkened. Fraudulent document. Jennifer had no authority to prepare it, your parents had no standing to authorize it, and signing it could have created legal complications for you as the actual owner. So they were trying to sell my house. Using an unlicensed agent, based on ownership claims they couldn't substantiate with forged authorization documents. David shook his head. This could have resulted in criminal charges against all three of them. What happens now? We document everything and present them with the facts. Sometimes reality is the best teacher. Wednesday morning, I invited my parents and Jennifer to meet at David's office. They arrived expecting to negotiate property terms and left understanding they'd narrowly avoided federal fraud charges. Jennifer's license has been suspended for 3 months, David announced without preamble. Every real estate transaction she's attempted since August has been illegal. Dad stared at the suspension documentation like it was written in foreign language. That's impossible. Jennifer's been selling houses all year. Illegally, David confirmed. And your attempted sale of Alex's property, which he owns free and clear, constitutes fraud. Mom turned to Jennifer with dawning horror. You told us you were fully licensed. I thought the suspension was temporary. Just paperwork issues. The suspension notice clearly states 6 months for failure to complete continuing education and misrepresentation of ownership rights in previous transactions, David read aloud. The room fell silent except for Jennifer quietly crying. Within a week, Jennifer faced additional disciplinary action. The attempted unauthorized sale of my property, combined with her pattern of misrepresenting ownership rights, resulted in a 2-year license revocation. My parents attempted apologies, but the damage was irreversible. Their willingness to override my property rights, combined with failure to verify Jennifer's legal standing, revealed fundamental disrespect that couldn't be unseen. I kept the house, transforming it into residence and business headquarters. The deed now hangs in my office, not as trophy, but as reminder that family respect requires verification, not assumption. Look who finally showed up for family dinner, Dad smirked as I walked into our weekly gathering. How's that little business of yours going? Still selling things online? I smoothed my deliberately modest dress, no need to show the Chanel label, and took my usual seat at the far end of the table. The seat reserved for the family disappointment. It's going fine, I replied, watching Mom arrange her social media perfect table setting. Everything had to look just right for her #blessed #family dinner post. Fine isn't paying bills, Dad lectured, cutting into his steak. Your brother James is closing $1 million deals at his firm. That's real business. James puffed up with pride. Actually, we're meeting with investors next week. Looking for $2 million in expansion capital. He smirked at me. You know, real money, not the pocket change from your little online shop. If they only knew that my little online shop had evolved into a venture capital firm with over $500 million in investments. That their precious James had been unsuccessfully trying to get a meeting with my company's investment board for months. Speaking of which, Mom chimed in, arranging her plate for a photo. James needs to borrow your old laptop. His presentation computer crashed. The one you said was a waste of money? I raised an eyebrow. The gaming laptop you told me no serious businessperson would ever need? Just because you got lucky with some online sales doesn't make you a tech expert, James snapped. I need it for actual business. I thought about the 3 MacBook Pros in my office, the private server farm I owned, and the tech company I just acquired last week. Sure, take it. It's in my old room. Mom brightened. While you're there, I've been thinking of turning your room into a home office for James. He needs a proper space to work when he brings deals home. Of course he does. I sipped my water, thinking about my penthouse office overlooking the city. The same building where James would be pitching to investors next week. My phone buzzed, a message from my investment director. Thompson Brothers pitch meeting confirmed. They don't know you're the potential investor. Still want to maintain anonymity? Absolutely, I texted back. Let them pitch their hearts out. When are you going to get a real job? Dad demanded, noticing my texting. Your brother worked his way up properly. Started in the mailroom, now he's bringing in serious investors. That's how you build a real business. James nodded sagely. You can't build success selling trinkets online. We're talking serious capital here. 2 million is just the starting point. 2 million. I couldn't help but smile. That's ambitious. Don't mock your brother, Mom scolded. At least he has a real office, not a laptop on a coffee table. If they could see my real office with its floor-to-ceiling windows and private elevator. If they knew that their son's big investor meeting was actually with me. You know, James said condescendingly, if you're nice, maybe I'll let you sit in on the investor meeting. Show you what real business looks like. Dad beamed. That's generous of you, son. She could learn something. Thanks, I said quietly, but I already have a meeting that day. Let me guess, James laughed. Another craft fair? Or is it a social media marketing seminar this time? My phone buzzed again. Due diligence complete on Thompson Brothers. Numbers don't look good. High-risk investment. I smiled, typing back. Keep the meeting. I want to hear their pitch personally. Well, I stood up, declining Mom's offer of dessert. I should go. Got some online orders to pack. That's your problem, Dad called after me. No ambition. While your brother is meeting with millionaire investors, you're playing shop on the internet. Walking to my car, the modest one I drove to family events, not the Bentley in my garage, I thought about next week's meeting. About James's face when he realized who the mystery millionaire investor really was. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving people wrong. It's letting them prove themselves wrong in front of exactly the right audience. The day of the investor meeting arrived and I sat in my private observation room, watching through one-way glass as James and Dad prepared their presentation in the conference room. They'd been waiting for 30 minutes, exactly as I'd instructed my team. The mystery investor is very particular, my assistant had told them. They like to observe presentations before entering. James kept adjusting his tie, the same one he'd bragged about at Sunday dinner. A real businessman's tie, he'd said, mocking my online shopping hobby. Dad was pacing, practicing his speech about family business values. The same values that had led them to dismiss my business acumen for years. My phone buzzed with texts from Mom. James is meeting his big investor. So proud of my son, a real entrepreneur. #blessed, #proud mama. I smiled, thinking about the stack of documents in my briefcase. The real numbers behind Thompson Brothers' success. The audit reports. The credit checks. The long list of rejected loan applications from other investors. Miss Chin, my assistant's voice came through the intercom. They're getting anxious. Should we proceed? Give them 5 more minutes, I replied, watching James sweat through his expensive suit. Let them simmer. Finally, I stood, straightened my Armani power suit and picked up my briefcase. Showtime. The conference room door opened and I walked in. The look on their faces was priceless. James actually dropped his presentation clicker. Sarah. Dad's voice cracked. Good morning, gentlemen. I sat at the head of the table, spreading out their company documents. Shall we discuss your pitch? This is a joke, James sputtered. You can't be. Where's the real investor? You're looking at her. I gestured to my assistant, who distributed copies of Thompson Brothers' real financial statements, not the inflated versions they'd prepared. Though after reviewing your numbers, I have some concerns. Dad found his voice. Now wait a minute. We were promised a meeting with Chin Capital's principal investor. You got one. I smiled. Chin Capital, named after me. The same little online business you've been mocking for years. James's face had turned an interesting shade of red. But you sell things on the internet. Actually, I built an e-commerce platform that I sold for $40 million 3 years ago. That was my seed money for Chin Capital. I pointed to their financial statements. Unlike Thompson Brothers, which appears to be bleeding money on vanity projects and inflated salaries. Those numbers are confidential. James protested. Not from your potential investor. I pulled out more documents, like these expense reports. A company claiming to need expansion capital shouldn't be leasing luxury cars and maintaining country club memberships. Dad leaned forward. Princess, let's talk about this. We're family. Family. I raised an eyebrow. Like when you wanted to turn my room into James's home office. Or when you mocked my business at every family dinner. That was different. He started. No, it wasn't. And neither is this. I opened my laptop, displaying their complete financial history. Your company has been rejected by 12 other investment firms. Your growth projections are fantasy. Your current contracts are all underperforming. James slumped in his chair. How do you know all this? Because I do proper due diligence. That's how I built a successful investment firm while you were buying expensive ties and calling yourself an entrepreneur. I stood up, gathering my documents. Chin Capital will have to pass on this investment opportunity. However, I pulled out one final paper. I am interested in acquiring your client list. At a fair market value, of course. You want to buy us out? Dad whispered. Your clients, yes. Your company. I glanced at their numbers again. Has little value beyond that. The silence in the room was deafening. James's perfect tie had come loose. Dad's confident posture had crumbled. Take the weekend to think it over, I said, walking to the door. Oh, and James, you can keep my old laptop. Consider it a parting gift from your little sister playing business. Sunday dinner the following week had a very different atmosphere. Mom wasn't taking photos for social media. James wasn't bragging about deals. Dad wasn't giving business lectures. I arrived exactly on time wearing one of my normal outfits, a Prada suit that cost more than their monthly mortgage. No more hiding who I was. How nice of you to join us, Mom said weakly, her Instagram perfect table setting noticeably absent. We saved your usual seat. Actually, I set my designer handbag on the table. I think I'll take the head of the table tonight, since I'm now the family's primary breadwinner. James choked on his water. The buyout papers for Thompson Brothers' client list were still fresh on his desk, the check I'd written still uncashed. About that, Dad started, Princess, we should discuss. My investment firm's decision? I pulled out my iPad displaying their company's real numbers. Or perhaps you'd like to discuss how you've been inflating revenue figures for the past 3 years. Mom gasped. James, you said the business was thriving. It was, he protested. Just, not on paper. Not anywhere, I corrected, scrolling through their financial history. 8 failed loans, 3 pending lawsuits from unhappy clients, and a credit rating that makes teenagers with their first credit card look responsible. We can explain, Dad began. No need. My forensic accounting team already explained everything. I accepted the wine Mom offered, noting it was the expensive bottle they usually saved for James's celebrations. Though I am curious about one thing. All those times you mocked my little online business, did you ever actually look up what I do? Silence answered my question. A simple Google search would have shown you Chin Capital's portfolio. Our investments in tech, real estate, renewable energy. I smiled. Even that country club you love bragging about. I own it now. James slumped further in his chair. Why didn't you tell us? Tell you. I laughed. Like you told your investors the truth about Thompson Brothers? Besides, watching you pitch to me without knowing was educational. So what happens now? Mom asked quietly. Now. I pulled out 4 envelopes. Now we discuss your futures. They took the envelopes with trembling hands. Mom opened hers first, gasping at the contents. These are your options, I explained. Mom, your social media influencer career can continue working for my company's marketing department, with proper oversight. Dad, your business expertise might be useful in our smaller acquisitions team, entry level of course. And James. He looked up from his envelope, face pale. A junior analyst position. In our due diligence department, you clearly need to learn how real financial analysis works. And if we refuse? Dad asked. Then you can explain to your country club friends why you lost your memberships. And to your business contacts why you're no longer welcome in any building my company owns. I sipped my wine. Which is most of them. Mom dabbed at her eyes with her napkin. Why are you doing this? Because success isn't about fancy ties or social media posts or inflated egos. It's about hard work, integrity, and actually understanding business. I stood up, gathering my things. You have until tomorrow to decide. Oh, and one more thing. They looked up at me, these people who had dismissed and mocked me for years. I'm keeping my old room. It'll make a nice storage space for my awards and magazine covers. I headed for the door, then turned back. By the way, James, that businessman's tea you love so much? It's a knockoff. like everything else about your business persona. The door closed behind me on their stunned silence. In my car, the Bentley this time I checked my phone. Another text from Mom. Please, can we talk about this as a family? I smiled, typing back. We are talking about it as a family. A family where I'm the CEO and you're all entry-level employees. Welcome to real business. Sometimes success isn't about proving your worth to others. It's about letting them discover their own worth isn't what they thought it was.